Hey everybody, Soul Citizen here. Today, I'm going to try to answer a question that I've been asked quite a lot in the last few months, and that question is Star Citizen a scam? To answer this question, we are going to have to break this down into multiple parts. We're going to start with Star Citizen so far. Where did it start, and where is it now? So initially, Chris Roberts went to the internet and said, hey guys, I'm looking to create a new space sim game that has a lot of emergent gameplay, sandbox-like elements, and is kind of a spiritual successor to one of my earlier games. And the internet got really excited about this. Chris Roberts is an experienced developer with some amazing titles under his belt, especially during the 90s. Things went pretty well. The Kickstarter, Chris Roberts had successfully raised just around $6 million for the game. Fast forward 1 year, and by 2013, funds had hit $23 million. And here is a critical turning point in Star Citizen's overall development. At this point, Chris decided to ask the community, should he keep going? Should he pursue more funding and widen the scope of the project and make it a much bigger game? Or should they stop and put a big old banner on the website saying mission completed and just take the development and essentially take that money and do what they had already promised and have the game release in a relatively short period of time from that point? Shockingly to some people at that time, 88% said that they wanted to keep funding and expanding the game and get to a bigger scope. Only 5% of people said no, stop this crazy train, let's take the $23 million that we've raised so far and build a game out of it. Now, I'm actually very happy that the early backers of Star Citizen decided to do this, or else we wouldn't even have anything close to what the game is shaping up to be nowadays. The early promises made by Chris Roberts and CIG were very interesting. It was a very interesting concept for a space simulator, but it was pretty basic. And it really didn't have the scope of the project that we have gotten to at this point. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. We'll get into that a little bit later in the video, but a couple years after that, the game was then split into two separate pieces. The Squadron 42 single-player experience, which now has had people like Mark Hamill brought on board, major movie stars, and there's going to be a cohesive narrative side of this game, which is going to be the Squadron 42. And the other side of this is going to be the large, persistent universe that is explorable and is done in an MMO type fashion. Basically a place where there's a lot of emergent gameplay, a sort of sandbox feel to it, and the game was essentially split into two separate entities. And at this point, it's basically like two separate AAA games. Now we're going to go into the second question, or second part of the video. Where's all the money going? So, to date, Star Citizen has raised $176,159,123. That's a lot of money. This has come from 1.9 million Star Citizens. Obviously, this has far surpassed even the final stretch goals of the campaign, which were set at $65 million for things like including pets and various other stretch goals. And Chris Roberts has actually used that money well, if you ask me. I think a lot of people, when they think of Star Citizen as a scam, they read poorly written internet articles that say, the most expensive crowdfunded game ever. And they're like, oh my god, how is this the most expensive crowdfunding game ever produced? But we have yet to see a serious release from this studio, from this title. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. All of that money has been put to very, very good use. Expanding the scope of the base game, adding alien dialects and languages, doing advanced motion capture techniques. A large amount of the money was actually used to purchase a small mocap studio. They've also hired third-party companies to work on things like the website. They have switched from CryEngine to Lumberyard, and all of those things cost money. They're not just free, obviously. Now, the fact that Chris has actually opened multiple separate studios to develop this game, A, makes sense, and is B, very expensive. We're looking at well over 325 current employees who are salaried, who work 40 hours a week. People like linguistic specialists brought on to actually flush out and make a complete languages for races like the Xian. And a huge amount of that funding has also gone into building out vehicles, having concept sales, which generate more money, creating concepts for new vehicles, getting ground vehicles made and playable in-game, having the huge amount of ships that we can have in 3.0 right now that are currently flyable. That all takes money. That takes paying an asset artist to design it, getting the flight mechanics right, designing any specialized weapons, designing the ship so that it can be in multiple different states in terms of undamaged, damaged, blown apart, modeling all sorts of things that in a lot of games wouldn't really need to be there, because in this game you're going to be able to blow up a ship and then go in and explore it as a derelict. So another thing that I think is very important in analyzing where this $176 or so million has gone is this was not a studio to begin with, right? Yes, Cloud Imperium Games was founded a little bit before Star Citizen was ever released, and they had been working on the project for a little bit, but we're not talking about a company like Blizzard. If this was a company like Blizzard and this was a project, first of all, it probably never would have panned out in this way. We wouldn't be getting we wouldn't even be getting the opportunity to have a game like Star Citizen made. It's just too expensive and too risky for most traditional companies to pull it off. Now, with that said, one of the best comparisons I draw against Star Citizen is a game like Star Wars: The Old Republic. This is a game that if you held a screenshot right up next to a screenshot of gameplay for Star Citizen, and you took your grandma or someone else who doesn't know anything about video games, you put them down in a chair and you said, which one of these do you think would cost more money to make? I'm pretty sure your grandma would point towards Star Citizen, right? Even just from a graphics perspective. Now, take into account that that game took over $200 million to develop. That is a significant amount of money over what we have so far raised for Star Citizen. And the technology at play in Star Citizen literally did not exist until CIG and Chris Roberts decided to make it, to build this giant persistent universe with no loading, and also build out a amazing graphics presentation to go along with it. And then you add to that the fact that they're now also developing a separate single player experience. This is expensive. If Chris Roberts was some scammer or robber, he literally would have taken the money, the $23 million in the beginning of the Kickstarter campaign, and tried to fly off to an island with a bunch of hookers and cocaine. But instead, when they kept raising money, it has almost always been continuously funneled back into the game, whether that's paying for people's salaries or adding major new features to the architecture of the game. Now, we've kind of explained the money piece. Now let's talk about, why is it taking so long? Well, the short answer to this is that it's really not taking that long. I know that might seem like a frustrating thing for me to say, especially with those early release dates that we got. But you have to remember, those release dates can't stay the same while the scope of the project is being opened up and there's more being added to it on a consistent basis. That just doesn't make any sense. Now, I do want to say really quickly that I have a decent amount of experience in games development. I have worked on several small projects and a couple larger ones. And I do think that a lot of people who are like, this game is taking way too long, simply don't understand game development. Now, just so you know, a quick note here. I will go over some of the more credible ideas about Star Citizen being a scam. I'm trying to make a positive case first here. So, if you take a look at Star Citizen and you compare it with similar MMOs, you're really going to see that 5 to 10 years is a very average, let me repeat that, average length of development time for products of this size and scope. Also, it's very important to note, we've never had a game with this level of size and scope and technology in it. Literally. There is no game that is as expansive as Star Citizen that also has the same level of accurate simulation and, you know, all of the different components that Star Citizen brings to the table. We just really haven't had anything like it. Most of the fundamental tech that makes Star Citizen tick, for example, object container streaming. This is the technology that allows them to have such a massive play area full of people and things and, you know, planets and procedural cities, and it all existing simultaneously without having to load during gameplay. Eventually, when all of this technology is implemented and optimized, you will be able to have basically everyone who's playing Star Citizen in a given region on the same server. It doesn't exactly work like that with the way that the technology has been developed, but that's how it's basically going to play out. The fact that you can take off of Port Alisar, go an incredibly long distance, and land on a planet in 3.0 without loading a single time, that alone is a technical marvel. So we really need to step back for a second and look at this and say, like, this technology that they're developing would take almost any company a long time to implement. You have companies like Bethesda saying, we're not going to make Elder Scrolls 6 for quite some time. The technology isn't there. The difference between Chris Roberts and Pete Hines in this sense is they want to wait for the technology. That is, Bethesda does. Chris Roberts says, no, let's just make it. Let's just do it. Let's take what we have for today's technology and make this game work, right? And that's an impressive, ambition, let alone something that a lot of people would be able to accomplish. We see the bones of this system in 3.1, and to me, 3.1 has been very comforting in terms of why is this taking so long? We now have some evidence. We now have some really clear things that show us where the time and money is going. Just remember, once again, we're not talking about an established studio with a huge amount of technology and development experience beneath them. We're talking about a studio that was founded to make this game, and they are developing this technology as they go. We're going to go into one more question here before we get to a conclusion. Where's the game? Once again, the answer is much more obvious than one might think. It's here. 3.0 coming online is probably, if not definitely, the most significant thing to happen with Star Citizen as of yet. 3.0, unlike 2.6 or other updates, isn't really just a tech demo. 2.6 was about showing off the underlying tech and the underlying ideas and motivations of Star Citizen. Maybe a little bit about improving reliability and performance and testing certain systems. What makes 3.0 so different is it's a foundation, guys. It is something to be built upon. Literally, it is a foundation to add modular features and concepts onto it. So right now we have the Stanton system, some procedural moons, and Port Alisar and some other locations. But what I'm talking about in the sense of this modularity is, if you watched my video for what is in store for us in Star Citizen for 2018, you would know that we're moving into a quarterly release schedule. And the reason that I think CIG has chosen now to do this is because since 3.0 is out, they can go along every quarter of each year. So in March, they can drop in big chunks of the game that they've been working on. Getting things like purchasable ships in game working. Getting things like planets with procedural cities working. These can now be added to the persistent universe that is 3.0. Instead of trying to basically redesign the game for each of these alphas, we're now at a point where this is going to be built into a beta and then built into an initial, release. It's also very important to know that Star Citizen isn't going to be a traditional release. Squadron 42, on the other hand, especially with episode 1, it will come out and it will be a finished product when it comes out and you're going to play it. And then the second episode will come out. With the MMO side of Star Citizen, it's going to be a continuous development. I'm even of the opinion that once the base features of the game that they're shooting for there are now, I mean everything. I mean mining, player contracts, bounties, all of the systems that they have promised us, meaning star systems, all of the land area, all of the space area, even when that is finished and in the game, they're going to continue adding to this. I virtually guarantee you. This is probably the first time I've actually been excited about games as a service. Now, let's take a look at the Squadron 42 side of things. While we haven't been able to play that yet, we have had Arena Commander and Star Marine, which are considered pieces of Squadron 42. They are basically, I honestly would call those tech demos, right? I mean, it shows off the first-person combat, grounded combat, and the aerial combat that's available to us now in its current state. But in December, we got a large vertical slice of the game. And what that basically means in development terms is we're going to take a specific part of this game, like, maybe early in the game or midway through the game. We're going to get this as much up to snuff as we can, get it as close to perfection as we can, and we're going to release it so that everyone knows what we're kind of going for. And I was very impressed. If you haven't seen that yet and you're considering backing Star Citizen, definitely look at it. That might just push you over the edge. I know that's been the case for a lot of people that I've spoken to, because that vertical slice is representative of a game that is essentially all there. Yes, there's things that they're working on with AI consumption and the fact that scanning is not enabled in that part of the game yet, and that there's a few things that really need to come together. There's still a lot of optimization that needs to come together, right? We all know that. But hesitantly and carefully, I'm going to say that I truly believe that Squadron 42 Episode 1 will come out in 2018. And if it doesn't come out in 2018, I am virtually positive about this, that we will see it during 2019. I have not been comfortable about making that prediction any other time in Star Citizen's history. Now, I might have to come back to this. There is an ATV special similar to the vertical slice that is coming out on the 25th. And when that comes out, it may give us a better indication of the timeline, but they're getting close, is essentially what I'm trying to say. For the detractors of this game, I know where you're coming from, guys. Let's get into this. Let's get into the more negative side. Although I highly doubt that the haters are still here, because I've been pretty positive thus far. But listen, I get a lot of people's frustration. I do think that a lot of people that are that think that this game is never going to be released, and that this is so bad, and Chris Roberts is a pirate and he's going to run away with everyone's money. I understand your point of view. I do, because before I became a backer, and by the way, I've only been a backer of Star Citizen for a couple months now. I'm not someone who's been riding this bandwagon since very early. With that said, I've been watching the development for a long time, but I wanted to hold off until I thought it was a good point to get into the game. But I understand where you guys are coming from by saying they have a lot of money, they have had a little bit of feature creep, the original, Kickstarter and the original idea that Chris Roberts pitched is very, very far from what Star Citizen currently is. But at this point, there is a mountain, and I mean a mountain, of monthly updates, content drops, interviews with the Star Citizen team, and a lot of things that say this isn't a scam. We're working as hard as we possibly can. It's just taking us longer than we want to. Games get delayed, guys. It's unfortunate. It's disappointing. There have been times where I have gotten into the 3.0 and had 5 frames per second and already had all of my performance optimization done and gotten very frustrated and been like, damn, like maybe this is a scam. Maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Maybe I'm losing my mind here and I really need to take a step back from this game and see it. But when I went to do that, which is actually where this video came from, I went around the internet and tried to ask as many people as I could, is Star Citizen a scam? I asked haters and I asked people that have been backing it, and I asked a few people that are personal friends of mine that hadn't been involved at all, positive or negative. And at this point, even some of the previous haters of Star Citizen, people that I actually sought out in comment sections, who were saying that they thought it was a scam in 2015 and 2016, and even into 2017, with the release of 3.0, have kind of changed their story. I do believe that 2018 will be a landmark year for Star Citizen. If you're someone who hasn't backed the game and you're on the fence, which is probably who you are if you ended up searching is Star Citizen a scam and you ended up watching this video, I would honestly suggest wait until you're comfortable with the state of the game. For God's sakes, don't purchase a game package today and think that you're going to be able to play the game like you would a fully complete MMO. That's not what's going to happen. I hate to say that, but it's completely true. There is a lot of fun things to do right now. But I would suggest keep an eye on the development, watch the weekly updates, and just watch and see whether or not this is something you want to invest your money into. Because we could still be looking at a long, and I mean long time before the main persistent universe is actually at what most people would consider to be a complete state. That could be as far out as 2021. I don't even really think that that's really that crazy considering where we are right now. I would hope that it's done by 2020 and we're at a place where a lot of us feel like the game is pretty close to being complete and we're going to enjoy it. Now, once again, I don't think this game is ever truly going to be complete. I think it'll be something with a very long and ongoing development, but I'm a fan of that. That's another thing. If you want to become a part of Star Citizen, be prepared to wait. There are things to be done while waiting for 4.0 or whatever, waiting for 5.0, waiting for the actual beta. There's a lot of amazing community to Star Citizen. I will say it can be kind of unfriendly towards the newer people in Star Citizen, but that's what I really want this channel to be about, is to be very inclusive to people that maybe don't even know what the game is and you're just getting into it. But in conclusion, Star Citizen is a massive game, both in size and in scope. And sometimes when it comes to games like this, it can be better to wait for a complete and enjoyable product rather than attempting to push a developer into releasing an unfinished one sooner. That's what none of us want. We don't want Star Citizen to come out in a ridiculously bad state to the public. That's what none of us want. I also think that most people that believe this game is a scam appear to be people who either haven't followed it closely enough to see all of the content updates over the last 2 years, or really just don't understand how game development, especially on MMOs, works as a whole. Once again, it's within reason to expect to see a Squadron 42 episode release sometime this year. And with that, we would see a massive spike in funding, which would probably also help along the development for the 3.0 and the MMO side of things. At this point, 3.0 is out. We've been wanting that for a long time. It's playable, and it's really just unreasonable to call this game a scam. But hey, if you disagree with me, I would love to know why in the comments. Let's open a dialogue and talk about this stuff. Also, I'm considering making content about other games. If there's anything that you guys would like to see out of me in content, please let me know. And also, of course, and as always, like and subscribe. I try to put out videos on a daily basis, and this channel is at the behest of my viewers. So get involved, become part of the community. And thank you so much for watching. Soul Citizen out.